It can make some of these hearing aids much bigger, but Oticon has figured out a way to keep it, what did you call it?
Little stubby and chubby.
Stubby and chubby.
When you look at them, that's what they look like, I swear.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Dr. Cliff Show. I'm Cliff Olson, Doctor of Audiology and founder of Applied Hearing Solutions in Phoenix, Arizona. And I am joined here today once again with my co-hosts, Dr. Kelsey Beck and Dr. Rachael Cook. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
So yeah, you guys swap seats and I'm like, gosh, I got to make sure that I actually do the right call out first. True to season here, we want to talk about the best hearing aids in 2025. Now we're heading into the year. We do know that new technology gets developed over the course of a year, but a lot of cool new technology was developed in 2024 and even towards the end of 2024 that we want to talk about, because those will be the top devices over the course of this year until some new tech potentially gets released. We should start off with a caveat though. So all of the devices that we're going to be talking about here today, they're all great, but it depends on two different aspects. Number one is you have to make sure you're going to a hearing care professional who follows best practices to make sure that these hearing aids are fit and programmed properly to your prescription, and to make sure that they're actually within the range of acceptability for a device, right? Some of them, depending on the severity of your hearing loss, you would not be able to use successfully for your hearing loss, so keep that in mind. If you're looking for a hearing care professional who follows comprehensive best practices, the best way to find one of those is to go to hearingup.com and find a Hearing Up Network member in your area. Every single one of those Hearing Up members have been vetted and are committed to following comprehensive audiologic best practices, so definitely check them out. The second thing here when it comes to these recommendations of the best hearing aids that are out there is that you can't necessarily go to a hearing care professional who never works with a particular brand and demand that they fit you with that brand, because they may not know the ins and outs of the technology. And we know that the biggest variable when it comes to having success with hearing treatment, other than having comprehensive best practices being followed, is the familiarity of a hearing care professional with said technology. I often tell people, do not come to me if you want a Widex hearing aid fit optimally. Right? Like we can get our way through it, we can make it sound good, but I'm not going to be able to know all the little nuances of those devices. So with that being said, as a disclaimer leading into this video, Dr. Beck, what is the first hearing aid that we would like to talk about today for the best hearing aids of 2025?
Yeah, definitely a huge improvement beyond their last couple of generations of technology comes from Oticon, the Oticon Intent hearing aids. They are a receiver in the canal device, so they have the part that goes behind the ear, very small, very invisible wire that leads down to the earpiece that goes into the ear. What I really like about this device is their improvements that they've made in their background noise processing. So for those with more traditional Oticon fittings in the past, right? We've got, mostly normal low frequencies, those kind of steep drop-offs in those higher frequencies, really good with the clarity, all of those things. But in the past, I have hesitated to fit their previous generations with people who tend to struggle more in background noise based off of their background noise testing scores, right? But now actually, because they've made such great improvements in their background noise processing, I actually don't have as many limitations put on me anymore, where I feel like they're actually doing their job much better in background noise than they have in their previous generations.
Yeah, one big reason for that is their deep neural network. That they're actually the first hearing aid manufacturer that came out using a deep neural network to do their signal processing. I'm going to try to give a quick overview of what that actually means. So essentially, these hearing aid manufacturers, they develop this artificial neural network that simulates how the brain would actually learn information. And so they feed a ton of information into these learning models, basically. And then on the other end, it's basically taken this information and it's separated out the differences in the characteristics between speech and background noise. It does this more accurately than what a human being can do in terms of creating a computer algorithm to try to define what these sounds are. So you're basically feeding millions of sounds into this large learning model. And on the other end, you have a much more refined speech signal compared to the background noise that they've been able to reduce. And they've also improved it. So when they first came out with a deep neural network for Oticon back in 2021, they actually came out with their 2.0 version, which has allowed them to do a lot of the things that you're just talking about right
there. One of the other things that I like that they did as well is that they added essentially motion sensors into the devices as well. So typically and historically, for most hearing aids, when you go into somewhere that's noisy, It takes the hearing aid microphone pickup range, right? It takes it from really wide and open, and it narrows it up to whatever is in front of you. But let's say you're going now into a shopping mall, right? And of course, the shopping mall is noisy. Well, the person you're trying to talk to while walking through the mall is not standing in front of you. They're standing next to you. And so these motion sensors can actually detect that you are in fact walking, and actually will start to pick up the things that are more from the side from you, so that you can hear the person that's actually talking to you from next to you rather than the noise that's just actually happening in front of you. So that's also another huge improvement as to why in different types of noise, different scenarios, different places you find yourself, you'll actually hear even better in those environments as well.
Not to mention the battery life on these bad boys. Battery life, they're rechargeable batteries, and they're only available in a rechargeable format at this time, so you have to go with rechargeable. But they switched out from that size 312 rechargeable battery to a size 13 rechargeable battery, and they said that that wasn't going to make a huge impact on battery life because a lot of that was to help with the processing for the deep neural network. But my patients seriously have worn them for 23, 24 hours in a row and still didn't run out and put them back on the charger, and they still had charge in them. So like they just go.
Yeah, they've actually
really
changed
go.
the battery technology, because if you remember back to, what was it, the Oticon Moors that came out back in 2021, they had a lithium rechargeable battery inside of them, like you mentioned, the size 312, that was removable. You could actually take it out. They used inductive charging as well, so there were no charging contacts on it, but that slows up the time that it takes to actually fully charge a battery inside of a hearing aid. So they went back to contact charging, so when you put it in the case, you have to make sure that the metal contacts are making good contact, so you have to keep them clean, but it charges the hearing aid much faster,
really fast.
And you're able to get much longer battery life. And they still kept the size of the hearing aid really, really small too.
Yeah.
This
they're
tiny,
cute.
Yeah, they are actually very cute.
They're cute.
They're little, like,
I don't know if
this
cute's
big.
the word I was looking
They
for.
are. They're kind of like stubby and chubby. I like
Yeah,
them. They're
they
super cute.
So when you have someone who has really small space behind their ears,
Yeah.
you have to still be able to find a hearing aid that's small enough to fit it.
Sure,
and with
exactly.
a size 312, either disposable battery or rechargeable battery, it was very easy to do that. Now that these manufacturers are going to bigger batteries to get longer battery life and to do more sound processing more efficiently and just for a longer period of time, it can make some of these hearing aids much bigger, but Oticon has figured out a way to keep it, what did you call it?
Little stubby and chubby.
Stubby and chubby. But I have not.
When you look at them, that's what they look like, I swear.
First, I've never defined it that way to any of my patients, but some patients are good with the stubby and chubby. I haven't had any patients who have not been able to fit this hearing aid behind their ears.
I think we're going to talk about a hearing aid later that's we refer to sometimes as bootylicious.
Yes,
so
that's true.
I think there's a few descriptors here. Proceed with caution.
dying.
I don't know.
The other benefit of the Oticon Intent is that they actually released it with LE audio capabilities,
Yes.
which means that they've upgraded the Bluetooth inside of it. Now, LE audio is the new futuristic form of Bluetooth connectivity. It gets you better range, gets you better sound quality. It has a much longer battery life for a hearing aid because its battery drain is much lower, and it gives you access to something like Auracast as well.
Right.
Also gives you potentially the ability to, so previously, their previous generations, when they were just the made for iPhone, right? You could select if you want your voice to be picked up by the hearing aids or by your phone, but both still allow you to have the phone call going right to your ears. That has not been available on Android phones yet. This should also make that available on Android phones as well. So that's another additional feature where I think historically, when we just have a made for iPhone technology, sometimes that transition into an Android is a little bit harder with the stability of the Bluetooth. That's also going to get significantly better for our Android users.
Yeah, it's interesting because they actually have both forms of Bluetooth in there right now. You have the Bluetooth Low Energy, BTLE, for the iPhone users, so there's still made for iPhone tech inside of it. I expect Apple hopefully in 2025, towards the end of the year, to come out with the iPhone 17 at that point, hoping that they at least have some compatibility with LE audio, because it's drastically different. I know that you guys are iPhone users, so you haven't experienced LE audio yet, whereas I have with my Samsung Galaxy S23 from like 2 years ago. That's just how Samsung works compared to iPhone. They're always ahead of the curve, but the sound quality is substantially better when you use LE audio.
We'll take your word for it. We're keeping our iPhones. Our group chats are much easier.
Yeah, yes, they are. Green bubble.
The other thing, they actually changed the orientation of the receiver wires that go inside the ears. So how has that been working for your guys' patients?
Really, really well, actually. I find that people are having an easier time of actually getting them into their ears and then staying in their ears as well. I feel like for the older generations, I was having to use more retention tails to try to keep them in people's ears. And now I feel like their retention is significantly better.
Yeah, I like them a lot. Traditionally speaking, the receiver wires would kind of bend at this 90-degree angle at the end. And now what they've done with this new receiver design is almost come down and backwards at a 45. And so when people look at it, they go, this is supposed to go in my ear. This looks like it goes backwards. But I'm like, just trust. Put it over your ear, place it in your ear, and once you get around that first bend, it really locks it into place. So significantly fewer retention tails needed for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people's ear canals bend backwards naturally. Like when you look in their ear, it looks like it's a straight shot, but it's not. It literally curves to the back on the vast majority of individuals. So it just kind of hooks it in there nicely. Their wires are super thin, so they're very difficult to see if that's something that's important to someone. And then they have a wide range of lengths on that too. I mean, their lengths get really, really long. So if you have a big gap between the top of your ear and your ear canal, typically you can fit it with them. And you can still get custom ear molds. I do like their micro shell ear molds for individuals who have either more severe hearing losses, odd configurations, steeply sloping hearing losses that you can't fit with a rubber dome. They have good options for that as well.
Yeah, they definitely do.
Okay, that's the Oticon Intense. Dr. Cook, what is the second hearing aid that we're going to include in this list of best hearing aids in 2025?
So one of my favorites going into 2025 is going to be, and prepare for this mouthful, the Signia Silk Pure Charge and Go IX hearing aids. Probably could have added a few more on there. In the ear, non-custom, like all this stuff.
Level 7,
level 7, level 5, level 3, level 2, level 1. The Signia Silk is a very small in-the-ear hearing aid, and traditionally they've had this available in their product line for quite some time, but it was always with the use of a size 10 battery. And now they've taken this teeny tiny little hearing aid and allowed it to become rechargeable, which was really, really exciting. A couple of things that I like about this. First and foremost, it is the only in-the-ear hearing aid at the moment that's considered non-custom, meaning you don't have to get a physical impression done or you don't have to get a 3D ear scan done. You can use domes, the regular silicone tips on the ends of these hearing aids, and just kind of get moving straight away with them, right? Like they just need to be ordered and come in, but there's no like custom processing that goes into them, which is really nice. The rechargeability is great. They've got an app on the phone, so they don't do Bluetooth streaming because I think that'd be a little bit too much battery drain, but there is an app where you can go in and change volume controls and programs, which is really an added bonus as well.
So the funny thing is that they were able to go from disposable battery to rechargeable and not increase the size, which was kind of crazy. Now they use galvanic charging, so there are charging contacts on the bottom of each of the hearing aids. You have to make sure you keep those clean.
They have to be clean.
Yeah, because if you don't, then you put it back in the charger and it doesn't charge.
Yeah.
But for a rechargeable hearing aid to be that size is quite surprising. You don't typically see that out there.
It sure is, and I forgot one of my favorite parts of it, cross.
Yeah, that's
We've
right.
got the cross option. So for individuals with single-sided deafness, traditionally their only options really at the present moment are receiver and canal hearing aids. So the kind that go behind the ear with the wire that comes down. If you wanted it in a custom option, your only option at the present moment is the Signia Silks. And so it's incredible to me that they were able to take these really tiny devices, non-custom, rechargeable, and you can have cross if you want it too. So
we might need to get my husband in a pair of those.
Right?
Just to try them out.
Yeah.
For those of you at home who do not know, my husband was born with hearing only in one ear, and he has struggled. He's 32. He has struggled a little bit with the optics just, in his workplace. We might need to get him into a set of those.
Yeah.
Pretty sure we got a demo set in the office.
We do.
Yeah.
Huh. We might have a little tester. Have we been able to test the cross and the silks in the office yet?
I will be fitting them this week.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
he gave me our second test run. So.
I fit, honestly, Silk has had cross capability even with the previous generation without the charge and go aspect, so with disposable battery.
He's just not a battery dude. I pitched it to him. He's not a battery dude, so.
Well, there you go. So it's a perfect fit.
Yeah.
Couple challenges maybe with this tech, just to make sure that we clear the air with it, is that depending on your level of hearing loss that you have, being a non-custom option inside of your ear, the fitting range can be a little bit limited with these.
Yeah, mild to moderate at most. Moderate at most. You know, this is going to disqualify a lot of people from being able to use this product successfully, but for the people who fall within that fitting range, it is a fantastic option. If you fall outside of that fitting range, though, and you're really trying to just make it happen with this tech, I do believe it's going to fall short in many areas just because of the power abilities of the device.
You might be able to squeak by. They will actually make a custom ear tip for it. So if you get a digital scan or physical impression, we can send that into the hearing aid manufacturer, and they will create that custom tip that you can then attach to the end of the Silks.
Right.
But at that point, it's almost like, well, do you want to continue to go with the Silk because you're kind of removing the added benefit from it of it being an instant fit basically, and making it more of a custom fit. And they have their NCO line for the custom fits of those invisible in the canal devices.
I will say that my grandma does wear the Silks, and she does have the custom tips on them, and they made all the difference for her as well. So,
that's cool.
Because she's kind of that borderline of just outside that slightly moderate level up in the highs. Just adding that on really changed her whole fitting for her as well.
Nice.
So they can be a really good option as well.
Any comments on how cute these are as hearing aids?
They are
So
also very cute.
They're so cute. They look like little slices of pie.
They do, actually.
They do.
Are we just cracking you up today?
That's you guys are. What did you have to drink this morning? Anything other than caffeine?
No.
Okay.
A bad cup of coffee over here.
Yeah, it was not great. It was not stellar this morning.
We've talked about the Oticon Intense. We've talked about the Signia Silk Charge and Go IX devices. The next on the list I will throw out there is the Starkey Custom line of rechargeable devices. So the reason I like these is that they are probably the best in terms of if someone wants a device that goes inside their ear and they want it to be rechargeable, these are the ones that I go with.
Yeah.
Super simple to use. You can take them out of your ears. They have these little, funny looking gold contacts on them, but that's actually where you make contact inside of the charger to charge these devices up.
But they're also magnetic, which is wonderful. So I tend to use these devices a lot for individuals who have, dexterity challenges, who maybe physically cannot change a battery, where the over the ear and the in the ear, that's a lot of dexterity that you have to have in order to accomplish that. So putting those in the ear, but when you go to the contacts, they just magnetize right up. You don't have to be, extremely exact with exactly how you place them, because that magnet is strong and it will find its hearing aid for you, which I think is quite wonderful too.
Love it. Yeah, and it doesn't matter which side you put it on. You can put it left, right, doesn't really matter, as opposed to some other custom in-the-ear products that are rechargeable.
Yeah.
You have to put them in a designated side, and for people with finger dexterity issues, that can be an issue.
Right.
Now,
Absolutely.
Starkey has had this. I mean, they've led the way with rechargeable in the ear. I mean, we've had them for years at this point. Right now, we are on the Starkey Edge AI line of custom in-the-ear devices. You previously had Genesis, you had other models before that. But the thing that is new with this updated line of Edge AI is that they are now using a deep neural network inside of their hearing aids as well. And a lot of the testing that has been done by Hear Advisor and just us knowing how much better a deep neural network is at sound processing and pulling speech from background noise, you now get the benefit of what you typically have to wait for a behind-the-ear hearing aid or receiver and canal hearing aid. You're now getting that inside of a custom in-the-ear hearing aid. And as of right now, they're the only ones available with that technology.
Right. Yeah. No, they've got a heck of a product. Dexterity issues, not only from a charging perspective, but also just from putting them in your ears. And so for a lot of individuals, using a receiver and canal hearing aid almost has multiple parts to it, in that you're putting a piece behind the ear, you're making sure the wire is flush against your ear, you're making sure that the piece is going in your ear. And for a lot of my older patients that maybe just don't have some of those fine motor skills to them, that can be quite the challenge. But a custom hearing aid really only goes in one way, right? And if it's not in the correct way, it's going to squeak, it's going to squeal, it's not going to sound quite right.
And it won't feel good in your ear either.
And it doesn't feel good. So there's, it's much easier for them to, something bigger to grip onto. It's one piece, and once it's in the right spot, you're good to go. And we all know this already as audiologists, but Starkey makes one heck of a custom product. So
Yeah, I think if you were to survey all hearing care professionals that work with multiple brands, not just one brand, but multiple brands like we do, that they would likely come out in the lead in terms of custom-made products, in terms of how well they fit, how well they function inside of someone's ears.
Yeah. Something important to note, we talked about, the rechargeability of the silks and how small they are. These do fill up a little bit more of the ear canal, where you actually will, see them a little bit more. They do fill up the entire kind of bowl of the ear on the outside. But again, too, especially for those who lack, that really good fine motor skills still, again, nice, big, easy to grip onto, put them right in that charger. I mean, they're really unbeatable at that point.
Yeah. They also have a lot of features to them that other products just don't have at this point. If you really wanted to get into the wow features of hearing aids, fall detection being one of them, live translation being one of them. Recently with their new Edge AI release, they added in these balance assessments. So
the steady
screening.
protocol,
Yeah, which was pretty cool. And there's also a self-test option for your hearing aids too. And so if something's not working with your hearing aids, you essentially take your hearing aids out, set them on a table in front of you, and click in the app to run a self-test on them. And it'll actually tell you if there's a microphone issue, if the wax guard is clogged, or if this is something that you need to see your provider about, which I think is pretty cool too.
Absolutely. Now, they have something called Edge Mode Plus, so they've upgraded from their previous Edge Mode. This is essentially allowing you to identify the intent of what you want to accomplish with these particular hearing aids. And so we talked about the deep neural network that they have inside of them that they're running because it's integrated into their main chip. But if you want to enhance that further and get the full signal-to-noise ratio benefit out of them, they were actually measuring up to 13 decibels of signal-to-noise ratio improvement, which is huge. That's for steady-state noises in your environment, like fan noise, air conditioner noise, things like that. It does drop down to 11 or 10 decibels when you start getting into more like conversational environments like restaurants and things like that. But even then, that's really, really good.
Pretty significant.
But that's with using Edge Mode Plus. Now, you have 3 different settings inside of Edge Mode Plus that you have access to inside of your smartphone because, yes, they are directly integrated wirelessly. You can stream and all of that. They do have LE audio. But with Edge Mode Plus, you can identify just best sound. You can toggle it to reduce as much noise as possible, and you can toggle it to enhance speech as much as possible. I will say that when you go to the enhanced speech, it can make things sound like tinny and metallic a little bit because they're trying to boost those high frequencies for more clarity and separation of speech from background noise. But if you really want to make sure that you can hear, toggling that on, even if it's not the most auditorily comfortable program setting, sometimes that can be of benefit as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Lots of options.
Yep. So love what Starkey's doing with their custom line of products. Hopefully, obviously, they keep it going. If I had to request one thing, it would be to make those gold contacts less visible. But what are you going to do? I mean, you just turn it into an ear ornament at that point because the gold, as it shimmers off of the sun, you can definitely it draws your attention to it.
Sure.
And maybe that's what some people want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
jewelry.
Yeah.
If you're going to have to wear it, might as well be pretty, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Might as well sparkle.
Exactly. So with that said, okay, so we've talked about several different hearing aids that we would consider some of the best here in 2025. Dr. Beck, what is another hearing aid that probably wouldn't surprise a whole lot of people for being one of the best that we have going into this year?
I mean, considering we've made several podcasts, I think about it at this point, definitely the Phonak, the Sphere devices that just came out, the Phonak Audeo, Infinio, Sphere rechargeable devices. Another one with a very, very, very long name. But these devices, I think, have blown a lot of expectations out of the water. Phonak has always made a really great product, especially when we're talking about background noise, the ability to customize every small detail inside their devices. They brought all of what was already great about their older devices into this new one and then enhanced it by really enhancing what they're doing with their background noise processing, because not only are they using their singular chip, but they also have added now a second chip to be able to actually do more of that AI processing and more efficiently. This is the one that Dr. Cook has already called Bootylicious.
Yes.
It must have been doing some working out and some
It did its
like
squats.
lunges and squats and all of that.
Because they did have to make the battery a little bit bigger as well on this particular device in order to handle all of that additional processing that it's doing. But as I said, I mean, the processing that it is doing for speech and background noise, I mean, I've not found a hearing aid that's doing it better at this point.
No.
So I typically do not like to demo features inside of the clinic. I usually like to let people go home into their environments, demo the hearing aids for themselves during their comprehensive best practice fitting sequence. But this is the first hearing aid that I'm like, it is such a dramatic difference when you go from the regular program settings to the spheric program settings, which is the AI that drops out the background noise and enhances the speech, that I will actually run a bunch of restaurant noise out of the loudspeakers in my room, and I run it loud.
As someone who shares a wall with you,
yeah.
We hear it.
So sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
But
I'll be sitting with my patient and be like, what's happening? And then I'm like, oh, sorry, he's just running him through a quick demo. Yesterday you had some orchestra music or something
That's
going
right,
too.
I did.
And she was like, is something happening? And I was like, don't pay attention to it.
Ignore
Anyway.
him.
It's funny because I'm like, oh, we have pretty good soundproofing on those walls,
We
but
do, but for an audiology
though?
practice, it's almost like you have to like quadruple what you think that you're going to need
That's
because
true.
we all talk so
Yeah.
loud.
we did. Well,
It's an occupational hazard.
Side note, when we built out the clinic space, I told the contractors, I'm like, listen, I talk loud and we cannot be having sound transfer from side to side, and they tripled the amount of insulation that they
Did
put
they really?
inside of the clinic. So if you go to other clinics, unless there's probably like a steel wall in between or whatever that's like really blocking the
Yeah.
sound in between the drywall, like we have some of the most soundproof rooms that you can have
I
as an
remember
audiology
working
clinic.
at the other office across the way when we were flooded, and man, I could hear anything in that room
And
happening.
suddenly, I'm really impressed with our ability to project our voices.
Oh yeah.
I know. I
mean-
think we're all gonna have vocal cord injuries by the time we're.
You gotta
50,
breathe through the
but-
diaphragm.
That's
you gotta
right.
use all your good
It's like we're on Broadway.
diction training.
That's
Yeah.
right. It's like we're on Broadway for sure. So, so like demoing it inside the clinic, running massive amounts of noise and orchestral music through a loudspeaker, and then toggling into this particular program. I have not had one person yet go like, "Whoa, that." I have not had one person not go, "Whoa, that is a huge drop in the background noise," and I can still hear and understand what you're saying. Like, it's such a dramatic difference. The deep neural network here is getting around 10 decibels of signal to noise ratio improvement. And I've even had some individuals with 18 to 21 decibel signal to noise ratio loss. And they're even reporting that they're able to go to a restaurant without an assistive listening device and use the spheric mode, which is the AI mode, to drop out the background noise enough for them to actually understand speech, which is something that has been completely unheard of up until this point.
What I've also been very interested by these demos that I've done as well is that I will also compare it to the regular speech and noise and the old version of the speech and loud noise, particularly from the aspect of listening to somebody who's not directly in front of you. So again, a lot of the processing that we've been doing up to this point with background noise is not necessarily only using processing to get out the background noise, but also to narrow the microphone's pickup range of the hearing aid so that you're focused in on the thing that your nose is pointing at, which ideally for the most part is the thing that you're typically trying to listen to. But let's just say now we all go out to dinner and we have, 3 other people with us as well. If I'm looking at you because we're having a conversation, but then Dr. Cook starts talking to me, well, I won't be able to hear her in that old setup. Right. So what I've also done is that comparison between that type of a mode where we're narrowing that pickup range versus the spheric mode, where now if Dr. Cook were to start talking to me from over here, I'm still going to hear her. And all of my patients have said that that's one of the biggest challenges that they've had up to this point is, yeah, I can hear the person that I'm directly speaking with, but now if Susie down the end of the table starts talking, I'm at a loss as to what they've asked me. And so that has also really enhanced that type of communication as well, because it might not even necessarily be noisy enough for that program to necessarily be automatically triggered, right? But still, even in that more moderately noisy space, that ability to still hear everyone at your table is so vital for that kind of, socializing and communication.
I'm going to take this opportunity to actually plug in the audio sample that we have of the sphere actually working in a noisy environment. So let me go ahead and play that really quick right now.
Intro song, and I was so behind the beat because when I would press it down, all of a sudden the pitch shift stuff was behind by like 10 milliseconds. I mean, it's enough to make the feel off.
Okay, so that's a huge deal right there. Now, I will put in a caveat here that this is for someone who has a very particular type of hearing loss with closed ear molds.
Yeah.
No venting at all.
Right.
It is actually fairly rare that you would fit someone that doesn't have at least some amount of venting in their ear mold, or most people are getting fit with rubber domes nowadays. So you may not get that full experience of what you just heard right here, but it's a huge difference when you listen to that audio sample. And a lot of the performance with this also is dependent on how well the hearing aid is fit and programmed. If you're not meeting your prescription for your hearing loss and have it verified with real ear measurement, you are not going to get the full benefit out of this hearing aid or any of the other hearing aids that we've talked about up to this point, for that matter.
I'd say anytime that there's a new hearing aid that comes out, there's a certain degree of skepticism on our side. I always kind of wait for the ball to drop in a way, and I often tell patients when we're fitting them during their fitting sequence that my goal during the fitting sequence is to actually poke holes in their performance and to try to find ways to make what we've selected and moved forward with fail. And sometimes they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, no, because at the end of this, I really want you to know that there is no doubt in your mind at all that we have selected the most appropriate choice for you. And they're like, oh, okay, that sounds much better. So I sit here with these new product launches and I'm always like, okay, when are the complaints going to start coming in? What are the quirks about this product that I'm going to need to learn workarounds for and things like that? I've probably fit 10 pairs of spheres at this point. I'm still waiting for the ball to drop. I'm still like, what's the problem with it? And that doesn't happen. Normally within the first 2-3 sets, you're like, oh, okay, we got to figure out how to work around this or work around that. And it hasn't happened yet. And that's very impressive.
Yeah, some of my very difficult to please patients previously who I've upgraded into the spheres have been exceedingly happy with it, which I'm just, you have certain individuals you work with, they're like, okay, they're going to help me figure out what the weak parts are of these devices.
They're going to shoot me straight.
Exactly. And I have not had them come in complaining about really any aspect of them. I thought the size of them would be an issue and they're like, they feel the same as my other ones when they're behind my ear, because they're so bootylicious on the bottom part of the hearing aid that falls back to a space on your ear that really
no one ever sees.
No one ever sees and no one ever really feels back there. If it was, more bootylicious up towards the top, I got to stop saying that.
We're going to get in trouble.
If it was bigger up towards the top of the hearing aid, that would be a problem, but that's not how they designed it.
Sonova's going to call after this and be like, hey, listen, we appreciate the pod. Can we pick a different word for our hearing aid?
Oh, gosh.
Unfortunately, we cannot. I'm so sorry.
I should also mention that the Sphere is more universally connectable because it does use Bluetooth Classic still. There will be a firmware update to make it compatible with LE Audio and Auracast because it does technically have Bluetooth version 5.3, which allows for those things, but because you do not find a lot of devices like any iPhone with LE Audio out there right now, they decided to keep it more universally connected, and then when everyone else kind of gets with it, and we have Auracast transmitters in public venues, then they're going to make the switch for everyone. So you don't have to not upgrade your tech if the thing that you're waiting for is LE Audio and Auracast. You can actually do it and be okay.
Right.
We've just talked about a bunch of them. There is one more that I want to sneak in here, and this is actually another Phonak hearing aid, but it's the Phonak Titanium. Now, the reason I'm not putting a actual make in front of it is that this particular hearing aid has been around for a while. So since 2018, I believe, with the Belong platform. But they have not technically at this point released the newest generation, which would be this Infinio Titanium device. So we're still working with the previous generation, but it's more about the fit and programming characteristics of this particular hearing aid that I'm a fan of. And so they're actually made out of titanium, which is substantially stronger than any of the acrylic materials that you work with. It doesn't have any of the fancy bells and whistles of the Signia Silk, so you're not going to go in and have app controls for it. You can't wirelessly program it. You're not going to get cross capabilities with this hearing aid. It is not rechargeable, but there's just things about it that, someone who doesn't want a rechargeable hearing aid, you got that checked off. Because it's titanium, you can make it really, really small and still not have it be such a thin, piece of acrylic that it just cracks if you drop it on a carpet, right? And they just perform well. The customizability, you can hit prescriptive targets typically that are more than what, some of these other invisible in the canal devices can hit. And I've just had a lot of success with it over the years, and I wouldn't expect that we would see that success drop off once they've upgraded the tech to this new generation here that we'll see in 2025.
Yeah, and and that's the thing, is that they have said that they are going to upgrade this tech. Now, the launch of the RIC devices, the spheres that have come out, that has been so wildly successful, and I think that they weren't necessarily prepared for how successful this particular device was going to be. So I think they've put a kind of a pause on releasing some of their other stuff. I mean, that is not official. I don't necessarily have that confirmed, but that's kind of the vibe that I'm sort of seeing the trend. But when they do come out with that newest platform, that's going to continue to take what's already very successful. I mean, like we said, we're technically 2 generations behind their current platform in the way of technology and processing, and it is still outperforming some of the newer of the tech just because of how successful it was to start out with. I mean, it's a really great piece of technology.
Yeah, those things fit so deep in the ear too. I would say of all of the, invisible in the ear options, I mean, you can get a titanium in there that no one will ever know exists in your ear until you tell them.
And what I like about it too is that, typically for the devices that go completely inside the ear, whether it's, one that fills up more of the ear space where you can see it, or one that is more invisible, we tend to get a lot of individuals who have more mild to moderate, even sometimes normal low frequency hearing losses. And, putting a device inside that ear that does fill up the entire ear oftentimes leads to things like occlusion and not liking the sound of your own voice and things like that. And yet they've still somehow managed to make the venting in that particular device really, really good, where hearing losses where I would have expected them to hate the sound of their own voice when putting something like that in their ear, I've actually not seen a lot of that. They've really done a great job of optimizing the acoustics of that device to allow it to fit a lot more than just, starting at mild hearing loss and beyond. I mean, they're doing some really incredible things from a fitting perspective.
Yeah, you have to make sure you get a really deep impression. So a lot of hearing care professionals will still do the physical impression material, which means that you have to get the oto block, where it stops the impression material when you're injecting it. You've got to get that really deep inside of the ear. It might be slightly uncomfortable to have that done because they got to get it down into the bony portion of the ear canal, which is more sensitive than the cartilaginous portion on the outer 2/3. But if you can get a really good deep physical impression, or even better yet, a digital scan that's not uncomfortable at all, and you can get it extremely deep into the ear canal because you don't have to stick an oto block in there, they can actually make these really, really small and fit really, really deep into the ear. The other thing I like about the titanium material specifically compared to the acrylic material that most hearing aid manufacturers make their invisible in the canal hearing aids out of is that you can have it texturized. So it's like a very, very fine-grained sandpaper outer coating. So when you slide it into your ear, it actually grips onto your ear canal a little bit better. You don't feel it at all. It doesn't feel like you have sandpaper in your ears, but it just provides enough texture to where it's not slippery and sliding out of your ears because you have a coating of skin oils and earwax inside of your ears as well. And like you were talking about, the acoustically optimized venting that Phonak does, I'm just a huge fan of acoustically optimized venting. Sometimes you have to have it modified, and then it's going to be different for every single person with their hearing loss and the characteristics of their ear. So you're not going to have any one titanium device that is identical to another because it is purely custom made for everybody's ear canal individually.
Yeah, they do a really wonderful job.
The weak link of these, the battery doors of them, so which is also kind of a good part about them. The battery doors are black. When you stick them in your ear canal, it looks just like a black ear canal. When you look in someone's ear canal right now, it's just a black hole. So they make the faceplate black. They also have a mocha color. So if you're just like, no, I still want to have it flesh tone, you can do that as well.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. I've had people say,
I
Cliff,
promise.
have you had people say, I want the mocha color,
Yes.
and then they come back and say, I was wrong?
Yes. Every single time. Trust me here and now. Trust me here and now. I promise you, go with the black option. I swear to you, do it. Because then you're gonna wear it. You're gonna say, and then you're gonna come back and say, yeah, let's change it.
And then
we can do.
But then we have to send the whole entire device back, have them change it, because you can't just swap out the battery door because the housing around the battery door is also black or mocha, right?
Yeah, I may have also downplayed the fact, if mentioning at all, that it could be a different color, because what I'll end up doing is just putting mine inside my ear, and I'll show them my ear that's empty, that doesn't have anything, in comparison to the one that does. And so I very briefly mentioned that you can do it in another color, but here, look at, and I'm one of the palest people you'll ever meet. And if I'm telling you that the black face plate is the one that I would go with, please listen to me.
I totally understand that for sure. You know, the battery door can also be made in either no push button or have a push button that allows you to change the different programs if we give them that access, or adjust the volume either up or the volume down, because it's only a single push button. It's limited to the capabilities that it has, and you do not have app controls with that.
I do wish, now, Phonak, if you're listening to me, I do wish, so with like their Lyric devices, for example, you have your middle setting point, and then they get like 2 volume up, and then it like kind of cycles back down, then you can go back to the neutral. Why don't we have that in the device? Now that I'm thinking about it, Phonak, if you're listening,
yeah, the way that we overcome that to some degree is we have to kind of game the system, which isn't nice, but like you either have to shift the volume up or shift the volume down on default startup, and then they have to go in if they want to get it back to their actual prescriptive point in the middle. But that would technically give them more range. It's just super confusing to do it that way. So I agree, it'd be nice if you kind of had the full range where you could put them where you want them to on startup,
just like 2
and then
up,
cycle it.
2 down. Like that's all we need.
Yeah, that would be better.
It would.
Now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, a lot of great devices this year. I mean, I tell people this every year. It's always the best year to treat your hearing loss, right? I mean, because new tech always comes out. The nice thing that we had about 2024 is that we had several different manufacturers come out with new lines that were pretty revolutionary from their previous lines. So if you're going to get new hearing aids, you typically want to do it on the earlier end of a new tech release, of a significant improvement, because when they come out with their next generation, typically it's marginal improvements over the previous. And you could literally go forever and be like, oh, well, they're just going to come up with something new in another year and a half, 2 years. I'll just wait. You can literally do that for the rest of your life.
They will continue to do that for the rest of your life. They will continue to come out with something new year over year over year over year. So don't let that hold you back from treating your hearing loss, because otherwise you will wait until you die.
Yeah, exactly. And typically we see big changes every 5-6 years, you know, really big changes. So if you do it now, the average lifespan of a hearing aid is about every 5 to 6 years. You're actually going to be on track to be ready for the next big thing if you do it now, based off of what we've gotten this year, for the next big thing too. So it's actually even a more perfect time this year than it ever has been.
And you know, I always think of it this way as well, is that if you wait to treat your hearing loss, let's say you wait another 2 years, I mean, you're going to spend another 2 years in auditory deprivation. You have all these other risk factors that are associated with untreated hearing loss or incorrectly treated hearing loss, like, you know, additional rates of cognitive decline, higher risk of dementia, higher risk of falling, higher incidence of depression, all of that stuff, social isolation. So there's really no good reason to delay treating your hearing loss. And so if you're going to do it, why not 2025, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you so much for talking about the best hearing aids that you can get here in 2025. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you hit that like button. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that and hit the notification bell so you get notified every single time we publish a new video. And we'll see you next time.